Hey everybody, so today I'm going to share 3 ideas to improve your piano practice and life practice. And those are gamification, practicing and learning in different environments, and moving towards things that you would normally avoid. And I think as a side note first, if you're wondering why things are so echoey, it's we are moving out of this, or I'm no longer teaching in this little studio. It's totally empty now. Got a nice little view here. But this studio has served me very well during the last 3 years or so. But we're making a change. Happy to share some of that in the upcoming videos. And other side note, I talked about piano practice and life practice, and I don't really just mean that as like a general, piano is like life overall, but I mean really actively I am thinking about how practicing the piano helps me in everything else in my life, and how honestly practicing life things will then turn around and help me in piano as well too. So this is really like a conscious effort on my part to see these connections, to see how these two and many other things are very interconnected, constantly helping each other. And so maybe that was already an idea all on its own. But in any case, the first one, gamification, I say this fairly often to some students. Maybe I should say it more often actually now thinking about it. So, we naturally like games as children, right? We like to have fun. We like to have childlike wonder about, we have the holiday season coming up now, of course, here in the US as well. And we gravitated towards that as kids. A lot of us kind of forget as we get older. I think some of us are more aware that if we have fun doing something, if there's a game element involved, it'll normally be more enjoyable. And I used to be very into video games and everything too. I considered myself pretty good. I was beating people at Guitar Hero and all of that in college on Expert, but eventually it just became so depressing because my little brother became just monstrously good at video games and really all types of games. So I kind of left that for his territory at that point. But in any case, like when we're practicing and we're solving, let's say for instance, specific sets using my methodology, I think it's a great idea to time yourself, on average, how long does it take for you to solve sets of approximately this difficulty, and then try to beat those times. Or you set like a timer, and then you think like, okay, how many sets can I solve? How many little different little areas can I solve within this time? Ready and go. And also sometimes you can purposely like mix up your practice in a way that's fun for you. You think like, what am I most inspired to do now? And you can kind of think of that as a creative challenge or game. So, and I have to do this I don't have to, but I try to do this in my regular life all the time. The things that we all have to do at some point, all those random tasks. I think I'll come back to this regarding the third point about going towards the things that you avoid. But just how many things can I cross off the list today? Can I beat that tomorrow? Can I stay consistent? Some people keep a log. Some people have some other way to keep track of progress, so to speak. If it's like like an RPG, I think as you accomplish these little side quests, like, I took this thing to the post office if I had to do that, or all that sort of thing, like all these random like errands and things. Well, you're earning points, so to speak, as long as they're things that are actually useful and they're unavoidable towards your goals, towards the rest of your life. So that's how I try to think of it. And I think, let's see, what was the second point? The third point was going towards the things that you avoid. The second point was the environment stuff. So there's been a lot of research to show that actually the old idea of just practicing only in one, or practicing or learning in one set study area, that doesn't necessarily produce the best results in terms of retention and recall and so on. And I think it's partially because we start to subconsciously have associations with certain parts of the environment. So for instance, if we're studying always in the same spot, then subconsciously we're thinking like, there's maybe that painting over there, there's that bookshelf over there. And our memory is kind of like tying what we're doing to these things such that when those things aren't around, it's actually interfering with our recall ability. Whereas if they had people practice and or study in different environments, like maybe in like this study hall, then at home, then at the library, in different places, then, people seemed to recall much more readily because presumably there's like lots of different visual cues, auditory cues, and so on. We've like recalled and re-recorded the information in like a whole bunch of different contexts. And that presumably makes the mind more flexible, not so dependent only on this or that particular environmental factor. And, I was thinking about that too, because in piano playing, like usually we're stuck to just one piano in one location, unless, we're at university and we have different practice rooms and so on. So even more so than like violinists, trombonists, etc., we're usually confined to one space. For that reason, I think, if space permits, it is nice to have, for instance, both an acoustic piano and a keyboard, although I don't think that's convenient for everybody at all times. I also think that, renting a practice room every now and then, where, however you might do that, maybe it's more convenient in some cities or some locations than others, it'll just make you more versatile, able to play on different instruments, different environments, etc. It's kind of tied to the performance practice videos that I've talked about before. And then also mental practice, like I've talked about in yet another video, that really enables you to practice in any environment at all, and all different types of conditions that, of course, it'd be impossible to practice on physically just because there's no piano there, right? If you're studying like French or something like that, you can be reviewing your facts pretty much wherever you are, but without mental practice, even for like a violinist, there are some situations where it would be pretty inappropriate to practice the violin, but now you can, as long as it's not a situation where you have to be like super like you're like presenting something or something that's work related that may get you in trouble. But again, when you're waiting for the subway, I was just walking in the rain earlier today, and when you're just standing around in line at the grocery store or whatever it may be, you can be practicing if your mental practicing is up to par, and that means that you're, again, recalling that information in all these different contexts. And I would do the same, of course, with all different types of learning, not just music, not just piano practice, but anything that I wanted to learn, recall better, etc. And final point was going towards that which you normally avoid, or the final idea. And that, probably just sounds like, don't procrastinate. So I think that in some ways things can just come down to that. But I think I just wanted to share like the way that I think about it. Obviously, it's easy to just say like, just don't procrastinate anymore, right? Just don't put things off. There's always nuance to this. I mean, first of all, like if you can eliminate, automate, or delegate a given thing that you have to do, it's not very important. It's not actually mission critical to your piano goals or your life goals or what you want to accomplish. Certainly you should do that. And that's like a whole other can of worms for probably another video. And if it's something that, like for instance, let's say that I'm in the middle of doing some very important piano practice, and then I think like, hey, I'd better like get the mail, or I'd better get a haircut. I think I need to, accomplish some other random task. That is probably not the most important right now, and I actually should focus on the thing that I'm doing. But let's assume that you've considered those things. This thing cannot be like eliminated, automated, or delegated. This thing makes sense to do right now and or today. Like you've planned it out, you've thought it through. So it's like, let's just assume that it's actually sensible to do it today. And in fact, it should be done today. It's better to do it today than other days. Well, if that's the case, then, now's the time to not procrastinate on what that thing is. And assuming that you thought that out, my thought is it's not just a habit of, I want to be the sort of person that when I encounter something and my first thought is to avoid it. My first thought is like, oh, I can maybe wait until later. Like, I mean, the thing that everybody's unwilling to do is just to walk directly towards the thing that they're starting to avoid, right? Do I want to be the sort of person that once I experience a little bit of fear, like I'm able to still go towards that thing in spite of the fear? Once I start feeling the resistance, I think resistance, that feeling is good, and just go towards the thing. Because I feel that in piano and in life, I mean, the people that ultimately are successful are the ones that will go towards the things that everybody else avoids, right? The things that other people are not willing to do. And today it was like a whole bunch of like little things. There was one thing to do with like my accountant. There was one thing to do with, I don't know, like for me personally, things to do with like legal things, accounting things, random errands, like things I don't really understand. A lot, some of it's intimidating to me, and some of it is business related, other things are personal. And I have a little voice that starts, saying like, oh, this is going to be really tricky to do. This is going to be really difficult. This is going to be really time consuming. It's probably better if you just practice the piano. And then I think, nope, I'm just going to go directly towards the thing. Before it has the time to like explain and make all these excuses, I just think, well, I want to be the sort of person that as soon as this thing starts talking, I cut it off immediately and I just go towards it in a straight line, right? So, and I accomplished all of the things, and I've done that more and more recently, and I can feel it seeping into my life in all aspects, and in my practice as well too. Just all the little things. If you keep practicing, there will be less and less resistance. You start to embrace that discomfort, So I know that tomorrow there's going to be other things that come up that I'm going to start to rationalize that I don't have to do, even though I've already reasoned that it's more helpful to do it than not. And it's just going to become easier and easier for me to, ignore that nonsensical voice. And I think ultimately I'm going to be more successful than most people because of my willingness to develop this habit. So you could just say it is don't procrastinate in some ways, but I think any kind of habit that we're trying to develop, it's the way that we're thinking about it, the words that we use for ourselves, the specific mindset, the specific strategic way that we're relating to the thing. And for me, it is in the way that I described. Like, I want to be the sort of person that goes towards the things that people would typically avoid. I think that that's what's going to allow me to win ultimately at the game of life, right? So that was my answer. Your answer might be different. But once we find the way that we optimally relate with these concepts, I think a lot of doors will start opening up. So hope that was helpful. I think it was 3 ideas. It might have been like 1 or 2 other ones thrown in there. But if you found that helpful, please like, subscribe, perhaps leave a comment. And for those that are in the US and celebrating something, hope that you're having a very happy holiday season. And best wishes to everyone. Looking forward to the next one.